Fire, fire, fire.
Mailed evidence to the FBI. To FBI from killer. Oh boy. Are any of these serial killer women by chance, perhaps? Wait.
Not every killer is caught by genius detectives. Some criminals get caught because they mess up in ways that make no sense.
Isn't there a statistic of like criminals wanting to be found out? Like they're so narcissistic that they want to take credit for the killing?
Mistakes so dumb, you can't believe they actually happened. Today, we're looking at serial killers who got caught for dumb mistakes. As usual, we'll go from shocking cases to those that are just insane. So, my goal, guys, is 2.5 million subscribers by the end of 2026. Can we actually do it? I don't know, but, you know, we gotta dream big. So it would mean the world if you subscribe, and I will do my very best to make the best videos I possibly can for you. I'm Visual Venture, and you are awesome.
Thanks.
Dennis
what a nice
Nilsen.
guy.
This criminal was caught because he didn't understand how toilets worked. His name was Dennis Nilsen. For years, he was one of Britain's most dangerous criminals. And one careless mistake in the bathroom exposed everything. Dennis grew up in Scotland in the 1940s. He seemed completely normal. But when Dennis was 6, his grandfather passed away. They were very close and loss broke him. He began to develop a fear of abandonment.
Nilsen started to have a fear that he could be abandoned by anybody at any time.
That fear followed him into adulthood. Dennis became withdrawn and antisocial.
It was said that Dennis was just like in his bed and he would just read newspapers and keep to himself.
He had other personal issues.
But I kind of do that. Not newspapers. I read books or I read my phone. Am I a serial killer?
But he didn't open up to anyone. That isolation slowly changed him.
killer.
By the late 1970s, Dennis was unstable and having violent
Name
thoughts.
one book. Your
In
mom's
December
pussy.
1978, Dennis went to a bar near his home. He met a young man named Steven. They talked for a while, and Steven followed Dennis back to his flat. When it was time for Steven to leave, Dennis felt the same fear he battled all his life. The fear of abandonment.
Dennis was more
I wouldn't do
worried
that.
or kind of panicking that Steven might leave. Like he couldn't bear another day alone.
That panic consumed him. In a moment of madness, Dennis ended Steven. It was his twisted way of making sure Steven
This is what I was saying, like, you know, you just gotta put him in a box, bro. Yeah, like, obviously, there's just something wrong with his brain. Like, he's gonna leave me, we're gonna kill him! It's like, no, you shouldn't do that.
Never leave him.
Put him in a
Then
box.
came the next problem.
Feed him 4
what to do
square
with the
meals a
body.
day.
At the
It'll
time,
be fine.
Dennis's apartment was on the ground floor, so he decided to hide Steven's body under the floorboards. It wasn't just about hiding evidence. He believed keeping the body nearby was a form of companionship. For months, no one suspected.
Okay, that's fucking weird. What do you mean, a dead corpse's companionship? What? Excuse me?
A thing.
Okay, maybe
Soon,
I'm not that
the urge
weird.
returned.
I
About
think
a year
that's
later,
sick.
Dennis took another life, and then he did it again and again. Over the next few years, he ended multiple people. Most of his victims were young men he invited to his apartment. He would end them before they could leave, then hide the remains. He buried some in the garden and hid others under the floorboards. Dennis became an expert at disposing of remains. Then his landlord ruined everything for him. In 1981, Dennis's landlord told him to move out, so he moved to a smaller flat a few miles away. But the new place made hiding bodies much harder. It was on the top floor. That meant he couldn't bury his victims. So Dennis
you should throw them over the balcony.
improvised.
That's what I would
when he
do.
ended his victims, he put them into cupboards and drawers. It didn't take long for those places to fill up. Running out of options, Dennis made a reckless choice. Dennis decided to flush them down the toilet. That was
But then how are you gonna do that? Like, you'd have to melt them down? What a dumbass.
a terrible idea. The drains clog almost immediately.
Because even if you melt them down, the human body has fat in it, and it turns into lye when you combine it with certain chemicals, which already are in the toilet. That's gonna clog it even more. Let alone the smell. Let's not even think about that. Like, let's ignore that factor. Like, you're instantly gonna, like, fucking alert the authorities and be like, hey, why the fuck is this toilet clogged? It's probably clogging the entire section, too, because you're living in an apartment complex.
Soon, the entire apartment.
How do you know this? I feel like that's a very basic concept, that like human bodies are made of fat, and then that fat can combine with chemicals to make lye, which you can make soap out of. What, you haven't seen Fight Club ever in your entire life? Where are the bodies? What? It's a movie. Like, it's a book and a movie. I read the book and the movie. Where'd you born? Bro. She made soap out of the victim. It's not that weird of a concept. It's not.
Building was filled with a foul stench.
What?
Frustrated neighbors hired a plumber to find out what was blocking the pipes. When the plumber saw what was inside the drain, he had to call the police.
And these police took these chunks of meat to a pathologist who confirmed that they were in fact pieces of human flesh.
Plumbers and police traced the source to Dennis's flat.
I said to him, I'm here because your drains were blocked with human remains. And he said, oh my God, how awful.
I didn't do that. That's not me. Duh.
He was arrested in February 1983. By that time, he already ended at least 16 people. At the trial, Dennis pleaded not guilty, claiming he had a mental defect. The jury didn't believe him. He was sentenced to life in prison. Dennis remained.
How could he not have a... This is what I've always wondered. How do you determine that someone is like mentally ill and it's not just them faking it? How do you determine that? I know they say like, oh, they do a bunch of tests on you and ask you a bunch of questions and stuff. It's like, you could be lying about that too.
Behind bars until May 2018 when he passed away. Dennis thought flushing remains down the toilet would make them disappear, but drains don't work that way. What you flush stays in the system. It builds up and eventually someone finds it. The internet works the same way. When your personal information is online, it doesn't just vanish. Your address, your phone number gets spread across the internet.
Dude, this is actually fucked up. I actually thought about whatever the fuck these ads are for like Incogni and stuff. I'm pretty sure my fucking stupid phone number got leaked because I got a bunch of fucking messages from numbers about free Temu fucking gifts, and they got spammed to my number like 5 times. I gotta do this. I know I've been watching these ads for like forever. I might actually have to do this shit.
Years ago, someone found my personal information online and used it to threaten me and my family. That was the moment I realized how exposed we really are. It's because these data broker websites make money by selling your information. And what's crazy to me is that it is completely legal, but they're also legally required to remove your data if you request it. So I tried deleting my data online by myself, but there were just hundreds of these websites that had them, so I gave up. That's exactly how today's sponsor Aura can help. Aura finds out which websites have your information, then they handle every removal request for you. In just a few weeks, you'll notice less spam calls, less junk mail, and your information becomes way harder to find online. But Aura doesn't just stop at data removal. It monitors the dark web and alerts you if your data shows up there. So if someone tries to take out credit or open a bank account using your name, Aura will alert you right away.
But then who has that data if the Aura has the data, chat?
In the worst case scenario, you're covered by up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. And because Aura protects you from every angle, they give you a VPN, antivirus software, and a password manager, which all help you stay safe online. If you guys want to try Aura, click the link in the description or head to aura.com/VV for a 14-day free trial. That gives Aura enough time to find out if your personal data is already being sold online. Up next is a criminal who got caught because he couldn't help but brag about his crimes. Dennis Rader. Most serial killers try to stay hidden. Dennis Rader did the opposite. He spent years sending messages to the police bragging about his crimes. In each message, he dared them to catch him. Rader saw himself as a criminal mastermind, but one dumb mistake proved he was anything but that. In the 1960s, Dennis Rader worked as a home security technician. He would go to different homes installing alarms and security systems. He seemed like a devoted father and husband. People were saying that he looked like a pillar of the community, but behind that image, Rader was hiding violent fantasies. He just hadn't acted on them yet. That changed when Rader realized something disturbing. His job.
What is the statistic? How many people are sociopath but harmless out of 100? It's like 1 in 25. Chat, one of you is a sociopath that's never gonna act on your impulses. Did you know that? That's crazy. Yeah, there's at least one of you in here. Could be you. Yeah, it could be you. It could be you, little guy, right there with the cot. Yeah, that's you. That might be you. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not even kidding. That's the statistic. I think it's like 1 in 25. Or like 1 in 100.
As a home security technician gave him direct access to people's homes and to potential victims. As Rader moved from house
I'm way too empathetic. I cry at like everything.
to house, he picked out people he wanted to attack. He chose those who looked vulnerable and lived alone. Soon he had a list of targets. The first was a woman named Julie. One morning, Rader broke into her home. He expected her to be alone, but her husband and 2 kids were there too. Rader ended everyone. Before leaving, he cleaned everything that could be traced back to him, and he did a good job. When police arrived, they found nothing solid to go on. Months later, Rader went after the next person on his list. Once again, the police had no leads. Most people stay silent after getting away with murder. For Rader, that silence was unbearable. He wanted the world to know how smart he was, so he decided to introduce himself to the public. Months after his second crime, Rader mailed an anonymous letter to the police. In it, he claimed responsibility for the crimes. He also revealed the name he wanted to be known by, BTK. It stood for Bind, Torture, End Them. The media picked up the story. The BTK Strangler became a national headline. Rader loved the attention, and it motivated him to resume.
This is so commonplace, it's not even funny. That's like one of the first things that police people do, is they try to bait the killer to try and reveal themselves. It's like a classic narcissistic trait that some of these people have that do this.
His crime spree. Over the next several years, he ended at least 10 people. After each crime, he mailed letters, poems, and puzzles to the police. He used fake return addresses so nothing could be traced back to him. Sometimes he described where the victims could be found. Other times, he dared the police to catch him, but they never could. Sometimes there was nothing else that the police could do except to wait for the next victim. Rader was obsessed with attention, and that obsession is what ruined him. By 2004, mailing letters no longer excited Rader. He wanted to go digital. Now he wanted to type letters on a computer, save them on floppy disks, and mail them to cops. A floppy disk was an early form of digital storage like a USB stick, but he wasn't sure if the
fact that he has to explain this, oh my god.
Police could trace where a disc came from. So he did something unbelievable. He asked them. He mailed one last letter and asked, "Can I communicate with floppy and not be traced to a computer? Be honest." He told them to reply through a newspaper ad, and they did.
The police responded in a newspaper ad saying that it was safe to use the floppy disk.
But that response was a lie. The truth is that a floppy disk can reveal exactly which computer it came from, but Rader believed them.
What a dumbass! I mean, to be fair, it's not like you could Google it.
He fell for it. He literally believed the police.
He mailed the disc. When investigators examined it, they found 2 key details. The file was created at an address in Wichita, Kansas, and it was made by someone named Dennis. Police tracked him down. February 2005, Dennis Rader was arrested near his home. His trial became a media spectacle. Parts of it were even broadcast on TV. Millions watched as Rader calmly described his crimes.
When they came out of the house, I came in and confronted the family, and then we went from there.
He was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms in prison. Dennis Rader is still serving that sentence. Up next is a case where the criminal fell in love with his victim, Bobby Joe Long. Everyone handles heartbreak differently, but when Bobby Joe Long's relationship ended, he snapped and innocent people ended up paying the price. Bobby's problem started long before he got his heart broken. As a child, he hit his head again and again.
Long had a lot of head trauma. He fell off a swing. He got a concussion. He fell off a pony and had a concussion.
Oh my God.
Those injuries damaged part of his brain tied to judgment and behavior control. Because of that,
that's what they attribute to long-term what is it called, traumatic brain injury, and they study people just in case they like have impulses like that. Because if you do a lot of damage, especially at a young age, CTE or TB, whatever the fuck, sorry, I'm not super well versed with the acronyms, but like it can get worse with age, but also if you do it, if it happens really early, it can develop into like really bad symptoms such as psychopathy or like impaired judgment.
Bobby struggled
anger
to tell
issues, that
right
too.
from wrong. Years later, a bad
Oh.
breakup pushed him over the edge. According to Bobby, the relationship ended in his 20s. After that, he blamed women for everything wrong in his life. Eventually,
like an
that
incel.
hatred led to horrifying actions.
No,
In
it's not.
1980, Bobby started targeting women
It's a
across
joke.
Florida.
It's a
His
joke.
strategy was simple. He searched
Oh.
newspaper ads for used items, particularly bedroom
He's just like me,
furniture.
for real,
He
for real.
contacted women who were selling furniture and arranged to pick it up at their homes. But when he arrived, he attacked them.
This is why I'm paranoid about fucking selling shit, even though I want to. I don't want people coming to my damn fucking apartment, knowing where I live and scoping out the place. You, as a woman, you have to do this shit where you have to pretend like you have a fucking boyfriend or husband and stuff, or like have people over when this happens, because then they think that you're not living alone. If you're a guy, like generally speaking, people won't like scope you out like that.
This pattern continued for
sucks.
about 3 years, and something forced him to change his approach. In
Yeah,
1983,
or like the
one
dog's
victim
mean.
reported
You're
Bobby
just
to the
sweet, though.
police.
It's
However,
kinda hard.
Bobby lied, claiming the encounter was consensual, and he managed to avoid jail. It was a close call, but Bobby didn't want to risk being reported again, so he vowed to never leave a victim alive. In 1984, Bobby's crimes escalated. He began abducting and ending people. Then he made the dumbest mistake that landed him behind bars. In November 1984, he abducted Lisa McVeigh.
I remember thinking of my family, my sister, my brothers. What are they going to do without me?
At first, Lisa
Oh my
begged him to free her.
God.
That only made Bobby angrier, so she tried another approach. She listened to Bobby and asked questions almost like a therapist.
There was a moment we had a conversation. I had asked him, why was he doing this to me? He said, due to a recent breakup, he was getting back at women in general.
Lisa realized her survival
Oh my
depended on
God.
gaining his trust. She told Bobby she
Smart
understood him.
woman.
She even offered to be his girlfriend.
I said, listen, I can be your girlfriend. You
Please
don't have to
don't
tell
kill
me how
me.
we met. You seem like a pretty nice guy.
She
Please don't kill me.
promised to keep their relationship secret. They could live happily ever after. All he had to do was let her go. Somehow, Bobby believed her. He drove Lisa back toward her home. Along the way, he stopped at an ATM to withdraw cash. After 26 hours in captivity, Bobby released Lisa. As soon as he left, she ran straight to the police. Lisa reported everything she could remember: the make and model of Bobby's car, the location of the ATM, and his physical description. With all that information, it didn't
Smart
take
gal.
long for investigators
There's
to
not a lot
find
of
him.
smart
Bobby was
girls like
arrested
that.
in November 1984. At first, he was only charged with Lisa's abduction, but when police searched his home, they found evidence linking him to other cases. Bobby confessed. He was sentenced to execution. That sentence was carried out in May 2019. This next chapter is about the criminal who got caught because he wanted a haircut. Earl Nelson.
Big
Earl
mistake.
Nelson ended multiple people and evaded police in 2 countries. But in the end, it wasn't an investigation that caught him. He was exposed as a killer because he wanted a haircut. Earl became a criminal after an accident. When he was 10, he was in a serious cycling accident. He suffered a severe head injury and slipped into a coma. When he woke up, something about him was different.
Earl was never the same after this. He had large gaps in his memory, and he suffered from severe headaches for the rest of his life.
Over the next few years, he became moody and unpredictable. But things were about to get worse. When Earl was 19, he fell off a ladder and got a second head injury. That second blow pushed him even further into madness. He began losing his grasp on sanity.
Earl started spending
Dude, that's so sad. Like, again, this isn't this guy's fault or anything.
a lot of time in the basement, and he also started hearing
Wow.
voices.
His behavior frightened
no.
everyone around him. Eventually, his
Schizo
own
moment.
family told him to leave their home. By his late 20s, Earl was isolated and consumed by violent thoughts. Then he snapped. Earl's first victim was a landlady named Clara Newman. In 1926, Earl visited her pretending to rent a room. As soon as she let him inside, he ended her. When the police examined the scene, they found little evidence. They thought it was an isolated crime. But 2 weeks later, Earl ended another landlady, this time in San Jose, California. Just like before, he pretended he was searching for a place to rent. And when the
That's his
landlady let him in,
trend, you know.
he attacked. Panic spread across the community.
The brutal murders horrified residents, and a
this guy.
$1,500 reward was released, equivalent.
Dude, I used to binge watch this guy, Rob Gavigan. Yeah, he has like an entire channel dedicated to this stuff. Rob Gavin? I haven't watched this stuff in years, man. I really need to get back on that.
To $20,000 in 2015 in hopes that they could capture the unknown killer.
The newspapers even gave him a name, the Dark Strangler. Over the next few months, Earl ended multiple people across several states: Oregon, Iowa, Kansas, and Illinois. Earl traveled constantly. He used a rotation of fake names and false identities. He would arrive in a new town, attack someone, and leave before authorities could
That was back when, like, you didn't have cameras everywhere and shit, so it's really easy to get away with.
For nearly 16 months, he stayed one step ahead of the law. Then a haircut ruined everything for him. Earl had enough hair on his head for someone to grab and pull. Unfortunately for him, someone did. In June 1927, Earl tried to end someone in Canada, but his victim didn't go down without a fight. She scratched and clawed. She even tore out chunks of his hair, leaving...
I've been told by multiple women, including my mom, if I ever, like, if there's, like, no hope of me basically, like, surviving, if you guys are reading between the lines, the best thing you can do is scratch the shit out of them to get skin under your nails and rip their hair and try and, like, kind of, like, conceal it as much as possible or leave it on the ground and shit. Yeah, I know it's gonna sound morbid, but that's the reality. Yeah.
Wounds on his scalp.
DNA,
he managed to enter and escape, but his hair was a mess. The next day, Earl walked into a barber shop for a trim. The barber immediately noticed the scabs and bald.
No, it's just the reality of, like, you know, being a girl. Like, I'm not trying to be, like, mean or anything. It's just, it is what it is. Another person can overpower you very easily.
Patches.
His barber said that he had scabs and cuts all over his scalp, and he got really weird when the barber asked him about it.
The barber became suspicious and called the police. By that time, Earl already left the barber shop, but the barber provided a full description. Soon after, Canadian authorities issued a nationwide alert. 5 days later, an officer spotted Earl at a train station. He was arrested. By then, Earl ended at least 22 people. At his trial, his lawyers argued he was insane, but that defense didn't save him. Earl Nelson was given the death penalty. The execution was carried out in January 1928. Up next is a criminal who practically arrested himself, Arthur Shawcross. Everyone has habits, even serial killers. Arthur Shawcross had one of the worst habits a criminal could have. He loved revisiting the places where he committed his crimes, just to look around and admire his work.
Ah, the nostalgia. I put this guy down over here. What is wrong with these people?
That dumb habit became the reason he was arrested. Even as a child, Arthur had a violent streak.
In school, the teachers characterized him as lazy. He was aggressive and would bully other children.
At 21, he joined the U.S. Army. He was sent to fight in Vietnam. Life at the war front gave him freedom to act on his violent impulses.
He claimed to have been a one-man patrol in Vietnam and that he killed 39 combatants.
Dude, he's just a perfect machine for just destroying people. Oh my god.
When Arthur returned home, he reportedly experienced severe PTSD. He struggled to hold a job and developed an antisocial personality. Those issues influenced what he did next.
Yeah,
in 1972, Arthur ended the lives of his first 2 victims, but he was sloppy. Witnesses saw him with one of the victims before the crime. He was arrested and sentenced to 25 years in prison. But halfway through that sentence, Arthur applied for early release, and it was approved. Prison officials claimed he was no longer dangerous. It couldn't have been more wrong.
Prison didn't do much for Arthur's already troubled mind, and once he was...
The guy who went to Vietnam, who was already proven to be a fucking crazy person. Yeah, no, he's fine. Yeah, just let him go. Yeah, that's fine.
Released, he was much worse than before.
As soon as he was free, Arthur began hunting again. Over the next 2 years, he ended multiple women. Police knew they were dealing with a serial killer, but finding him wasn't easy. Arthur left no fingerprints and followed no clear pattern. However, he had one weakness. After every crime, Arthur returned to the scene to relive the attack.
Then he hid her body under a tree, went home. Then he said he returned several months later.
Detectives eventually noticed this pattern. Someone kept coming back to the crime scene. scenes. So they made a simple plan. If they wanted to catch him, they just had to wait near one of his old crime scenes. In January 1990, police found another victim buried in a field. They believed the culprit would return to the site. So this time, they left it undisturbed and set up surveillance around the area. Then they waited. 2 days later, their patience paid off. Arthur drove back to the crime scene.
It was what the police had been waiting for.
And it's so incriminating too, especially if they didn't say that they weren't gonna like bury it or anything. They just found it and said, okay, we're gonna play this gambit. And then it paid off because this motherfucker drives out miles and miles out to do this. Like, who else would do this and know exactly where to go? I'm assuming it's like out in the wilderness in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, right? Yeah.
FBI profilers had highlighted the killer's pattern of returning to the dead bodies.
Arthur got out of his car and examined the burial site.
Shawcross returned to the bridge to make sure that the body was far enough under the bridge so we couldn't observe it.
He seemed almost proud of himself.
I guess I could say I was enjoying myself.
He sounded like Elmer Fudd, you know, from Bugs Bunny. Kind of looks like him too.
He had no idea he was being watched. Eventually, officers moved in and arrested him. It was January 1990, just 2 years after his release from prison. By then, Arthur Shawcross already ended at least 14 people. At trial, his defense argued insanity. They claimed PTSD and childhood trauma caused his crimes. It didn't work. Arthur was found legally sane and sentenced to 250 years imprisonment. He passed away behind bars in 2008. This next criminal got caught because he parked in the wrong spot. David Berkowitz. For most of his early life, David Berkowitz felt unwanted. He was adopted as an infant, and he grew up wondering why his real parents gave him away. When he finally discovered the reason, he went crazy. When David turned 21, he tracked down his birth mother. She told him he was the result of an affair she had with a married man. In fact, both his biological parents were married to other people when he was born, and that's why they gave him away. That information triggered a psychological breakdown in David. He began to unravel. Around this time, he developed an interest in the occult. He became obsessed with devil worship and dark rituals. Soon after, he claimed he was hearing voices of demons in his head.
There were demon-esque things that were possessing him. He wasn't just himself.
By 1975, David lost touch with reality, and that's when the violence began. David's crime spree began in December 1975. He attacked a random woman on the street. She survived, and David escaped. But the voices of demons inside his head didn't stop. They demanded more. In July 1976, David fired a weapon at 2 young women sitting in a car. This time, one person lost their life. It was the first time he ended someone, but it wouldn't be his last. Over the next several months, he ended multiple people. By early 1977, detectives noticed a pattern.
That's so
the
sad.
shooter had a specific type of victim.
What if? Yeah, it probably looks like his mom or something. That's very common too. That's another thing where you discover information like this, for say like you find out there's a crime going on specifically with like murders. You generally have to like deduce a pattern, or like it's a pattern of location, a pattern of murder weapon, a weapon, like a time of day. Sometimes it's even weather related. Sometimes it's related to like the moon cycles, because some of these people like to go out on a full moon because it's like good to strike at night. Types of people, the race is also a very important factor. Sometimes some of these people fucking go based off a race. It's very common too. Yeah, age. Yeah,
Who they preferred to target. Women with long,
or
dark
sexual orientation.
New
That's
York
another thing
realized
too.
they weren't dealing with random violence. There was a serial killer on the loose. To catch him, police formed a 200-person task force.
The crimes led to one of the biggest manhunts in the city's history.
Undercover officers patrolled neighborhoods. Detectives chased every possible lead. Still, they couldn't find anything.
But police still have nothing they'd be willing to describe as a hot lead in the case.
Meanwhile, the entire city was terrified. People stayed inside after dark. Stores lost money because customers were too afraid to go out at night. Women dyed their hair because they heard all the victims had long, dark hair.
Oh no!
And through it all,
I mean, honestly, that's kind of smart. Yeah, say what you want. That's kind of smart.
David kept attacking. In 2 years, he ended 6 lives and injured several more. It seemed he would never stop. In July 1977, David drove to a neighborhood in the Bronx. He was hunting for his next victim. He found a couple sitting in their car and attacked them. The man survived, but the woman didn't. When David returned to his car immediately after the crime, he found a parking ticket on the windshield. He unknowingly parked too close to a fire hydrant. He didn't think much of it and drove away. Hours later, police arrived to investigate the crime. They questioned people in the area. One woman remembered seeing a strange man near a parked car.
A man come towards me and he looked me straight in the face. He looked at my door, and right here we crossed each other.
She believed he was the person responsible for the tragedy.
All little information like that, man. You'd think she probably thought nothing of it, but it mattered so much, man.
That night.
I didn't know he was a killer. I didn't know he looked nice.
She also noticed the parking ticket on David's car. That made it easy for detectives to find them. They pulled every ticket issued in that area that night. Within hours, they found the car she described.
It was registered David Berkowitz with an address in Yonkers.
Police brought David in for questioning. He confessed immediately.
David Berkowitz, 24 years old, a postal worker, walked out of his Yonkers apartment last night, turned the ignition key in his car, and found himself surrounded by police.
In court, David pleaded guilty. He received 6 consecutive life sentences. When the story hit the news, one detail stood out. This dangerous killer was caught because he parked in the wrong spot and got a parking ticket. Up next is a criminal who practically wrote down his crimes. Henri Landru. Henri Landru wasn't caught because of witnesses or a confession. He was caught because he loved to write. He wasn't writing stories or novels. He kept a diary to organize his life, and without realizing it, he wrote down the very details police needed to arrest him. In the late 1890s, Henri lived in Paris with his wife and 4 kids. But Henri couldn't keep a steady job, so he chose a different path: crime. Henri didn't want to be violent, so he became a scammer. He pretended to be an engineer and inventor. He promised to design machines for paying clients. When orders came in, he disappeared with the cash. Police eventually caught him, and he was imprisoned for fraud. When Henri was released in 1909, he tried a new scam. This time he targeted rich elderly widows. He placed personal ads in newspapers looking for love. It was like Tinder.
Gorgeous, tall, beautiful, lots of money. Yeah, it goes both ways, chat. You guys call like all the girls gold diggers that marry what is it called? They marry like old men. Yeah, it goes both ways.
In 1909, when women responded, Henri chose those with money. He would date them, gain their trust, and run off with their savings.
He continues to place personal ads looking for women to meet, and more women fall into his trap.
The scam earned him a lot of money, but he didn't get the opportunity to enjoy his success. One heartbroken widow reported him for stealing her money. Henri was arrested again and sent back to prison. When he was released again in 1914, he had a new mindset. He figured if his victims were not alive, they couldn't report him. So Henri returned to his dating scam, except this time he planned to end every victim. Henri kept placing newspaper ads and meeting widows, but now the dates had a deadly ending. He invited women to his home outside the city. The only way to reach the house was by train. Henri bought round-trip tickets for himself and one-way tickets for the women. One-way tickets because he never planned for them to
Wait, that's how he gets caught? Because he didn't buy the girls back tickets? Sorry, return tickets?
return. When they reached his house, Henri ended them.
His only motive is money. Once he gets that, he disposes of the women as quickly as possible.
To destroy evidence, he burned the remains in his oven. He repeated this process for years. He dated them, stole their money, and ended them at his house.
Over the years, neighbors often see him walking into the house with women, but never see the women leave.
As the victims increased, Henri...
Well, that was also back in the day when, like, people were really nosy. And, like, in a tiny town, you'd notice, like, things like that.
Became wealthy. Soon he had a new problem, accounting. He couldn't keep track of all his money. So Henri began writing everything down. He recorded names, gifts, and train tickets in a small notebook. It helped him stay organized. But that notebook became the biggest mistake of his life. By 1917, Henri's notebook was packed with names.
This is no different than like writing down shit when you visit your e-kitten and then you talk about how you fucking meet her the next day and then she's like, you know, under your floorboards. I mean, honestly, there's probably like some sort of serial killer out there that like wrote things down in his Discord server. Like, today I will be enjoying myself at Young Kitten, E-Kitten.
Same year, he met his next target, a woman named Celestine. As always, Henri charmed her and took her money. Then he ended her at his home outside the city. When Celestine disappeared, her sister grew worried. She remembered Celestine dating a strange man before she vanished. She also remembered what Henri looked like. Years later, Celestine's sister spotted Henri on the street. She alerted a nearby officer, and Henri was arrested. When the police searched him, they found his notebook. It contained the names of many women, but they didn't understand what the names meant. Officers then searched his home. They found tiny bone fragments inside the oven. Remember, Henri burned the remains of his victims in that oven. Unfortunately, experts couldn't prove the bone fragments were human. It was 1919 and forensic science wasn't very advanced. The case went to trial. At first, it seemed Henri might walk.
DNA analysis didn't come from until like the 1980s, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it sucked. Like, there's so many freaking, like, cases like that where you just didn't know.
Free. Landru and his defending counsel's main argument is that no bodies have been found, and that the bone fragments found in Landru's oven could have come from animals.
So investigators focused on Henri's notebook. They noticed a pattern. Henri always bought one-way tickets for the women and returned tickets for himself. When they checked, those same women were reported missing. The notebook became the main piece of evidence. Henri was found guilty and sentenced to execution. After his execution, Henri's story spread worldwide. It inspired movies, books, and radio shows. More than a century later, people still consider him one of France's most notorious criminals. These killers spent years hiding in plain sight, but eventually their masks slipped. It's proof that you can't fake being a good person forever. My friends, character isn't what you show people. It's who you are when no one is watching. Visual venture.
How could you even charm
Wait, before you guys go, make sure you guys watch my full-length deep dive about horrible internet crimes with insane twists. I talk about a dumb criminal who tattooed a crime scene on his chest, a 15-year-old who hacked Amazon and eBay from his bedroom, and a burglar who fell asleep in the house he was robbing. Click right here to watch it. Love you guys. Peace.
What do you mean, though? How could he charm them? Like, do you realize how easy it is to charm someone if you're just really nice to them and you glaze them? It's how I get chat to listen to my bullshit all the time. Duh. Like, come on. Like, you guys should know this. It's very easy. Yeah, you just tell them, like, aw, chat, you're so cool. Oh, wow. Your muscles are awfully big today, chat. I know I can't see them, but I can just feel it in my heart, you know? Yeah, just be nice to them. Men are easy.
Fire, 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 fire.